What is up, Silkinoids? Today I'm going to give you guys exactly what you've been asking for, the not so long awaited guide to the new Pacific aircraft in BF5. In this video we're going to go over all the settings, all the maps, all the counters to those counters, and just about every little trick I've found in the new planes. I've had some crazy success flying these things, and I think you guys can too. We'll just be focusing on the A6M2 and 1A Corsairs since the other planes aren't too viable yet for general gameplay. These tactics should still apply to them, and I believe they'll be pretty viable once our current toys get nerfed. Okay, so let's get right into this. So for the settings, I know a lot of you guys have really been asking for them, so I'm just going to cut to a little live clip where I explain exactly what I'm using and why I'm using it. Just remember, a lot of this stuff is personal preference, and it can come down to all sorts of stuff, like your personal dexterity and what you're already used to. But if you're coming fresh into piloting, I think my settings are a good start. You'll need a mouse with 2 side buttons to copy exactly what I use, but every gaming mouse these days has at least 2. Definitely make sure to invest in a mouse that suits you. I'd watch Rocket Jump Ninja on YouTube to find exactly what that is. Now just bear in mind that this video might be pretty long. It's going to cover an absolute ton of information, and it isn't like your regular kind of tutorial where you just explain the basics. I'm going to go into literally everything and show you guys exactly why I'm doing so well in Battlefield 5 right now. Anyways, onto the settings. Okay guys, so we're in the settings menu for BF5. I'm going to go through all my settings, explain exactly why I use them, and my mouse DPI is 800 for the settings that are affected. I'm going to try to zoom through this because I don't want to spend the entire video in the menus. I know a lot of you guys want to see this though, so I will show absolutely everything so you can copy exactly what I use if you really want to. Again, it is all preference though, so do that with your own discretion. Controls. This is what I run. None of this matters for planes except these. This is all preference. I run at 12%. This you need to have at 20% or above. It makes you turn slower, don't ask me why. And these are the 2 settings for weapon zoom. I like it on hold for some reason. I don't even know why, it's preference. And invert vertical flight, it's been like that from Arma 3, so I just transferred it over to this game. In advanced, I don't use uniform vehicle aiming. I don't use this. Oh, I use this, sorry. I don't decouple pilot free look. And I keep my plane control sensitivity at 150%. This is the only one that really matters here. You need it at 150, otherwise you turn slower. Again, don't ask me why, it just dice things. Okay, so here in gameplay, my HUD's on of course. I don't show HUD motion. And here's all like some preference settings. The only one that really matters is you keep your kill log on and maybe make it just so you can see the names. The kill log filter, I keep it at all so I can see everyone on the map, even teammates and enemies. It just lets you know, like, if the enemy team gets a heap of kills, you know they're going to be pushing someone, you can look out for that. Awards are off, it just gets in the way. You know, all this is what it is. I think it's all default. And the other thing we have is my crosshair settings. This is all preference, but basically you want to have something that stands out against the air and stands out against the ground. So this is what I run. This glow, it will affect your cockpit really badly if you max it out. Like your crosshair will like blur everywhere. So keep it at like, I don't know, 120 or below I think is good. Now for your hit indicators, this is all preference again. The only thing I like doing is I like turning the visibility down a little bit so I can just see through them if they're getting everywhere. Now my minimap, this is all default except for my flight zoom radius. I just maxed it out just recently just so I can see more stuff on my minimap. Again, the minimap isn't actually that important in Battlefield 5, so I only have it at 120%. A little tip here is, it looks like it maxes out at 100, but if you click it and keep dragging it, it will actually go further than 100. And you can use your arrow keys to change it. The rest of this is all default. My audio, keep it at 48%, which is the most I can take, and it kind of makes it so you guys can actually hear me if I'm talking over my gunshots. My sound preset, this is actually really important. Keep it on 3D headphones. It helps you kind of like hear where people are in a dogfight, and having a good set of headphones will help with that as well. I use the Audio-Technica ATH8700Xs. I've had them for like 2 years. They're like the best headphones ever. I'd recommend those, I guess, or maybe some Bear Dynamic DT990s. So in video settings, this is what I run. Just make sure you have the maximum refresh rate. Run full screen so it decreases input lag. You want to keep your vehicle FOV maxed out. And you want to turn all these off. I have motion blur at 1%. The reason why is it actually activates the config I use, which disables temporal anti-aliasing. And also just makes a bunch of other performance improvements. I'll show you guys exactly how to use that as well. Just wait till this little section's over. Now for these, it's all like performance on your PC based, I guess, so run whatever you want. But for my config, you have to have DX12 off. Your res scale doesn't really matter, just run whatever you want. Just probably don't keep it below 100, otherwise things are going to get blurry. Frame rate limiter, I have a line in my config that actually overrides this, so this doesn't matter. Future frame rendering, you want it on. Basically, it's going to exchange a little bit of input lag and you get a lot more FPS in return. You won't notice the input lag that you gain, but you'll definitely notice the FPS gains. The vertical sync, I like having it off. It actually increases input lag a lot and it makes the game feel really, really clunky, so keep that off, I guess. And you want to keep GPU memory restriction off as well. If you have this on, you're just going to get worse frames, like straight up. The rest of these are all low, and I keep mesh on ultra. This just increases the details along the range, so I can distinguish little details and like little things I see. The rest of this, I mean, you could turn it higher if you want. I'm sure I could fly on ultra settings, and I'd be very happy doing so. My PC just isn't good enough. Now for my pilot settings, this is something a lot of you guys really, really want to see. So these are all my controls for the planes. Pitch up on space. This allows me to turn constantly with just the holding of one button. Pitch down on left control. I almost never use this, but I just have it there in case I need to constantly pitch down. I have rear look and free look on the same button, which is shift. This is how it works on Battlefield 5, I guess. And what this really does is it allows you to free look and also rear view. Rear view is really, really important with a button that your finger is always on. So my pinky's always on shift, and it's a really important thing, so I decided to use the shift key for something important like this. Now, I don't like using the middle mouse one, which is default. It seems really convenient, but I just hate having my fingers off the M1, M2 buttons, so I just put it on shift here. Exit vehicles on P. I like to have it on this just so I don't bail out my vehicles accidentally. Full map is on mouse 3 in case I want to check full map. It used to be something you do all the time in Battlefield 4, but you don't really do it anymore in this game. So this just carried over and I'm just used to it, but I don't really use it that much. Chase camera is on mouse 4. This is really, really important so you can switch between cockpit and third person really fast. I like having it on a side mouse button, and the front one, which is the easiest to access, is mouse 4. I had to unbind space from fire if you want to use it on pitch up. The rest of this is all default, and you guys will have these already. I don't know what you'd use on console, so don't ask me that kind of stuff. I have absolutely no idea. Someone that flies with controller is Skywalker. I'd recommend checking out his channel. Maybe he has a video explaining his controller settings. I don't know. I'm sure you could ask him on his channel and he'd respond really, really fast, and he'd have a perfect idea of what to use. But for me, I just have no idea what to use on console, so don't really hit me with those questions. I won't be able to help you. Anyways, those are all my video settings, key bindings, audio, gameplay, and controls for Battlefield 5. And I'm going to show you guys how to install this TAA config if you want it. Okay guys, so we're here on the desktop and we are in this pastebin file, which I'm going to link in the description. What's in this is my config that I use in Battlefield 5. So what you want to do to install this config is copy everything here, down to this point here, line 78, press Ctrl C. Now you want to go find where you've installed BF5. For me it's in this little hard drive here, Origin, Battlefield 5. And once you're in here, you want to right click, new, text document. Now I use Note++, but you could do the same thing with Notepad. Actually, I'll show you guys how to do it with Notepad, since a lot of you guys are probably using that. So what you want to do with Notepad here is you want to just copy paste it all in, hit save as, change this to all files, and then call it user.cfg. Now you'd replace it, you wouldn't get this option to replace it, it would just save straight away for you. But since I already have it, it's asking me to replace, I'm not going to do that. And that, guys, is exactly how you install this config. Now the next thing you might want to do is use my NVIDIA settings. So I'll show you guys all of those. Okay, so we're here in the Manage 3D settings. This is the first thing you want to look into. Go Program Settings, find Battlefield 5 in the list. If you can't find it, hit Add, and it should be here if you launched it recently. If you haven't launched it recently, you might have to actually browse for it. Again, what you do is you go find your Battlefield 5 game, and then double click on the exe. Use this one, not this one. So I have it here, so I'm going to show you guys exactly how to change all these options. So, the things you want to change are make sure you have ultra low latency off if you're using pre-rendered frames, which you are if you're using my settings. I don't know why it turns itself to on. I'm going to have to look into that, but you should have it off. Now, your monitor technology is whatever you have. I have G-Sync, but honestly, if you have fixed refresh, that's fine too. Or ultra low motion blur is also really good. It's just whatever you have, it doesn't really matter, but I like G-Sync here, it's pretty good for me. Now, the next thing you want to look into is power management. Set it to max performance, that's really important. Set refresh rate to highest available. And shader cache on, optimization for samples on, allow high performance on, that one's important, threaded optimization. Triple buffering off, VSync, doesn't really matter, you're going to have it off in settings anyway. And yeah, that's about it. Once you've done all that, hit apply. The next thing you want to go into is adjust desktop color settings. So here are the settings I use. I've just changed the digital vibrance to make everything pop out a bit more. This is all preference. It might be too saturated for you, but I like it at 100%. Anyways guys, that's all my settings outside of Battlefield 5. Hopefully these really help you out, and let me know if it increases your kind of spotting capabilities. Okay, so to start with, we're going to look at the two main loadouts for each faction. I've spoken about the Zero loadout a lot, but just in case, I'm going to cover that again along with the Corsair. For the Zero, I've found that this combination gives the best killing potential and opportunities to make a difference in the game. You can take the regular bombs instead to take care of tanks, but your job in the Zero is to destroy enemy infantry. And if you do this effectively, the enemy team will never push. Fun fact, using this loadout, I have never ever lost a round on Iwo Jima defense. I've only ever seen the last point once, which is in the background right now. And this is against a clan stack and a solid team. I managed to turn the game around. It was actually a total steamroll until I joined, and we totally cancelled their attack on the mountain. If I had bombs, I'm pretty sure there's a few more rounds I would have lost, including this one. Now for the Corsair, it's more of the same. Some people would rather spec their plane for dogfighting, but the Corsair is just as effective as Zero for farming, except defense just makes for easier kills. Anyways, this is the setup you want for the Americans. Now for the maps, we'll start with Pacific Storm. This map is much more lush and green than Iwo Jima, which makes it much harder to spot enemies. Luckily the loadouts I've given you arm you with spotting flares. These are probably the most overpowered part of this loadout in terms of team play. You can drop them over the enemy objectives and spot pretty much the whole team. It's literally like a UAV in Call of Duty, and is going to be a big part of our tactics here. Use your spotting flares not to strafe, but to locate the general area of enemies. Once you know where to look, you can come in from a safe distance and engage targets, making sure to pull out early. If you see the spotting icons, you're just too close. At the start of this map, you also want to hit all of the landing craft and try your best to slow down the landing. It's free kills for you, and it helps out the team tremendously, gives them a much better time to set up. Now the biggest complication to this map is the storm. It doesn't always come in, but if it hits, you'll be relying a lot more on spotting flares. Now I'd recommend actually getting into Flieger range if you can't see the enemy, and shooting the spotted targets. If you enter Flieger range, make sure to exit your strafe low and fast, closing as much distance between you and the AA as possible. If you don't do this and pull up, you're just going to get into AA sight, and it's going to be a very easy kill for them. You can also use your bombs on spotted targets, and if you do this, especially just do not shoot, fly in as fast as you can and bomb a whole group. Now for Iwo Jima, the easier of the two maps, you want to either start by farming the boats on the Japanese side, or shooting the stationary guns on the US side. This map is a pretty easy farm for both teams. As the Japanese, make sure to always kill the stationary AAs, as they can be a major threat. Learn where they spawn and take them out from a distance. Once the stationary AA is cleared, simply farm from a long distance and keep an eye out for the white Corsair variant, as it has big scary guns. On the US team, you want to be careful of any zeros since they're all scary. Aside from that, this map is just a farm and there isn't too much special about it. If you're having problems with enemy planes, make sure to stay positioned firmly on your side of the map, and it will make it a lot harder for them to kill you. Onto the counters, we have stationary AA, Fliegerfaust, AA tank, and dogfighter planes. The stationary AAs are perhaps the thing that kills me the most. It's got some serious range and tends to just catch me out on low health due to that. The Flieger is easy to outrange, but this thing can just hit you from as far as you can hit it. Due to this, you need to kill it every single time someone gets in one, and even go as far as destroying it if you can do it safely. Sometimes you can position yourself so the stationary AA just can't kill you and you can farm, but those situations are so rare. Now for this new and scary Fliegerfaust thing, this is really strong up close, but it can be easily outranged. The deadliest combo is the stationary AA and then the Fliegerfaust. This AA only has to hit you once, and then the Flieger just has to hit you full shot, and it will insta-kill you. This is why I kill the stationary AA every single time. As for the Fliegers, make sure to pull off early, and always attack the closest group. If you attack the biggest farm but there's a Flieger under you, it doesn't really matter, he's still going to kill you. The AA tanks are the least worrying of all the counters. Firstly, they're always just farming because they insta-kill infantry, and secondly, they aren't super good at range. just don't get too close and you're fine. If you get too close however, the same kind of insta-kill combo with a Flieger can happen. Dogfighter planes are an absolute fierce counter and can shred you with their 6 machine guns and outturn you with their supercharger. Make sure to fly on your side of the map, and if one contests you, you'll have to deal with it. You'll have your team if you're on your side of the map however, so it should be very easy, and if you're close to your spawn you can abuse resupply, and it can't kill you if you fly evasively enough, but if it gets a good angle it can kind of insta-kill you. Additionally, when you're flying, learn to identify them. You're looking for a white Zero or a white Corsair. Once you kill them or they kill you, take note of the guy's name and check the scoreboard for their icon. If they're spawned in, you know you're going to have a dogfight on your hands. Make sure to never give your back to them and only engage them when you have the advantage. If you're farming, be very careful that they don't come on your 6 while you're doing so. If you have confidence in your dogfighting, you can actually go for the dogfight, or if you have an advantage, i.e. sneak up on them, you can also take that fight. Just make sure to not do it over even the AO or their side of the map. If you do it even over your objectives, you can die, so just make sure you're fighting firmly on your side of the map, or maybe even off to the side where the AAs can't see you. Now for the tips and tricks. These are going to be little bits that I've taken note of while playing and they might help you out. 1. You can turn faster sometimes by not ruddering at all. Yes, this is the case and it's weird as hell as someone who always ruddered, playing in Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1 a little bit and Battlefield 3. Our theory for it is that turning speed is directly proportional to the actual speed of the plane. This checks out as the supercharger makes your plane faster and results in a faster turn. Rudders however burn heaps of energy. I could talk about this dogfighting stuff for a lot longer, but basically if you lose energy you lose turn speed. You want to use this technique when you're pursuing a looper and trying to get longer angles. 2. You do not have to be near your enemy to bomb them. This is something you've hopefully noticed in all my gameplay. I've practiced to basically be able to lob bombs like a bomber would from really high altitudes. It's something that requires a bit of trial and error and doesn't always work, but if you're serious about staying alive and want to maximize your killing, you may as well use those bombs, so definitely learn this. 3. You can truce with the enemy planes. You don't always have to go full dogfighter mode. It's something that is going to get you killed more often than not, and especially if you're farming harder than they are, it's a net gain for your team. To do this, you basically want to make it clear that you see them, but then ignore them. Planes have this kind of body language. It's a weird thing to say, but a good pilot especially can tell what a plane is likely to do by the way they're flying. It's a really weird concept, but it's so true. The enemy pilot should pick up on this and hopefully they'll decide that you see them and you're someone that they don't want to kill. Now, if your friendlies decide to start killing the enemy planes, you want to ditch the truce as fast as possible as they'll be out for blood after that. Number 4. You want to know the ranges of your counters. The Fliegerfaust has a range of 438 meters. The 40mm AA supposedly has a range of about 700 meters. The AA tanks have an effective range similar to the Fliegerfaust. Your 20mm cannons have a range of 700 meters. Therefore, when you're strafing on a flat cannon, make sure to pull off less than halfway through the strafe. This will keep you out of Flieger range. Never strafe near an AA if he's going for you, otherwise the Flieger and AA com will insta-kill you. Another neat tip here is the objectives when targeted can tell you exactly how far you are away from them. This can really help you know exactly when you're too close, and it can also tell you when to turn around for your next strafe. A general rule of thumb is that if you can see the enemy spot icons over players, you're way too close. And now for the final tip of this video. You should know how to properly strafe. You'll want to do it at a high enough an angle where you're getting good splash damage, but not so high of an angle where you're actually not getting enough time before you get too close. The solution to this is strafing at roughly a 40 to 60 degree angle. This gives you plenty of time to shoot your targets and gets you great splash damage. Sometimes if you're going to go in for a bombing run, you can come in from above. If you do this, you're going to be in Flieger range, so make sure your exit is low and fast, preferably ducking behind some hard cover. Aside from that, strafing is essentially attacking and retreating over and over again. You just need to base your retreat on how hot the situation on the ground is. Sometimes the extra bit of risk pays off, and you guys will just need to get a feel for that. Finally, the last part of strafing is your aiming. It's a really important thing that often gets overlooked. To get better aim in the planes, you really just need to practice. Make sure you have a sensitivity that's not too shaky. If it is, then you might want to lower it. The cannons we're using have no drop, but they have a very slow bullet. They also have a lot of spread. You're going to want to get a feel for this and learn how you can kind of angle your plane to get bullets into different locations. You've also got to learn the lead on the cannons to really get the most out of them. Anyways, I think that's all you guys need to know to dominate in the planes in BF5. It sounds really corny, but the rest of it really is practice. I have about 80,000 kills in Battlefield planes and I still get better all the time. If you guys have any further questions, either leave a comment or join my Discord and throw them in there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all on the battlefield. Peace.